and Anthony Lionheart-Smith joining us here on the show. What's going on, Anthony? Thanks for the time this morning, man.
Hey, no worries. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're doing good. Go ahead, Leroy. You're very excited to get Anthony's opinion on this this plan that Dustin has with jumping the gilly.
So the flying guillotine, like,
right?
Like, is it probably the most dangerous move to try and to win a fight because it puts you in the most vulnerable position? Because Dustin Poirier thinks he can do it to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, listen, every jiu-jitsu coach worth his weight in salt will tell you never jump a guillotine, especially on a high-level wrestler, because if you don't get the submission, you just gave up a dominant position. You get Islam Makhachev on top of you, whatever time is left in the round is probably exactly how long you're going to spend on your back. So
right.
But you gotta respect Dustin's resiliency. Like, he just kept, even in between rounds in the Saint Denis fight, he's like, I can get it. I can get it.
Have you ever had a moment in a fight like that where you were like, I can do this, I know I can, and your corner's like, just move on. It's not
100%. Sometimes you get into these fights and you just have a moment where you're just shoving a square peg through a round hole, and eventually those edges are gonna round out, you think. But sometimes you got to move on, but sometimes you just keep forcing it and you force it and you force it. Sometimes you can make it happen. I honestly, as weird as it sounds, I think his guillotine attempt in this fight is going to be his best takedown defense. Because Dustin Poirier is not going to be able to stop Islam Makhachev from taking him down repeatedly. That's just how it's going to go. But if he can threaten a submission and get Islam to back off a little bit, I think that'd be his best takedown defense.
Yeah, you won your last fight with this move, Anthony. So, like, what is
Thanks
the key?
to Dustin Poirier, if we're being honest. I heard him say in Miami that he'd never gotten a guillotine finish, so it made me think, when's the last time I finished a guillotine? And I realized I'd never finished one in a fight. 57 professional fights, I'd never even jumped a guillotine before. So I owe that to Dustin Poirier.
He's like sweet. He's like, he's giving it's spreading for everybody. Everybody's just like, you know what? It's a great idea.
A bunch of gilly gooses around here.
Hey, that would be terrifying to me. Like, I used to think the head kick was the worst way to go, but now just getting choked out standing up.
Yeah, it sucks. Like when you know you're stuck and you can't breathe anymore, you got the legs wrapped around you, you can't pass the guard, you can't break the grip. Like, as crazy as it sounds, between fighters, that's more dominant of a win between like me and you.
Yeah,
like maybe you throw a head kick, you land a big shot, you knock me out. We both know that could have gone the other way.
Right.
Had a couple inches, but like you catch someone in a choke like that in I don't know, in more archaic days, I just killed you.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Anthony, the if he doesn't go winning this via guillotine, like how does he get this done? Because I know like the odds say, it's 23-1 that he wins via submission. So. Do you see a path for Dustin, or is Islam just too well rounded? I mean, people are saying maybe he's better than Khabib is. Like, how does he get it done? Because you never see Dustin Poirier as this big of an underdog.
Well, if we're just being very honest and we're talking X's and O's here, Dustin Poirier he's got an uphill battle here. I don't know that we see him finish the guillotine. It's possible, but I think we've talked about it so much. We've kept it in the forefront of Islam's brain. So I think that Dustin Poirier needs to hurt Islam early. He's got to get his respect early. He's got to get him backing up. Those dominant wrestlers don't shoot so well off their back foot when they're backing up. Mm-hmm. And we've seen in the Oliveira fight, Oliveira was able to back Islam up. And he shot a lot less because it's hard to back up and then shoot forward. The mechanics just don't work. So if he can hurt him early and he can put something big on him and he can get his respect and take the center of the octagon, that's going to help Dustin Poirier a lot. And if we're talking this fight goes to a decision, it's probably not Dustin Poirier who's going to win it. He needs to hurt him. He needs a finish. Could he hurt him big with a big right hand, that lead hook, and then jump the gilly? It's possible. But I just feel like there's something in the air happening right now. It reminds me a lot of the Cody Rhodes, finish the story. Like there's something that feels special about this event. In terms of X's and O's, I can't give you a clear path to victory for Dustin Poirier. But I just feel like with guys like that, there's more to it than the X's and the O's. There's intangibles that you can't see and you can't feel.
He's a warrior. He's a warrior. That's what it is. He finds a way.
He does. And eventually you keep guys like that on the outside for so long. And you know, I don't remember who said it, but if you keep the guy outside the club forever, right there at the door, eventually he's going to find his way in. And I just feel like Dustin Poirier is in that position where maybe he doesn't know how he's going to find it. Maybe he doesn't know, you know, exactly how he's going to win. Maybe he doesn't know if he can. But guys like Dustin who are fighters, you know, if you're a competitor, competitors need to believe going into the fight that they can win. They need to know exactly where their spots are and where they're going to be able to win. Fighters don't need that. I don't need to know that I can beat you because I'm just a fighter at heart like that. And that's what Dustin Poirier is. He'll figure it out on the fly, and he'll just find it as it happens. And I think that's the advantage that Dustin has. Islam is a competitor, and he's got clear paths, and he's got a system, and he's going to walk down that system. Dustin Poirier is a fighter, and he'll just figure it out as it goes.
How do you look at Islam just from a talent standpoint? Because people are wondering, you know, can he ever pass the legacy of Khabib? You know, has him in his corner again this week. I know Khabib, you know, ended undefeated, and we've seen Islam maybe more vulnerable. But like, just from a talent standpoint, are there things that make him different, more special? Is he very similar? Like, what do you see now that he's been on top for a little bit here?
With all due respect to Islam, the second I seen him lose more than one round, he'll never pass Khabib. Khabib lost exactly one round in his entire career. He's a little bit, he's more well-rounded. He's more diverse. He has more tools. At least he uses more tools in his fights than Khabib ever did. But, you know, you can look at that two ways. You know, maybe he's more diverse and more skilled, or maybe Khabib was so good at one thing he never had to go to his check down. So I'll always put Khabib above Islam because Islam is who he is because of Khabib. But he is, I guess, to walk that back, he is more diverse. He's willing to strike. He's willing to stand in the pocket. He will trade. Most of his wrestling attacks are upper body attacks, which is going to help Dustin Poirier a little bit. Dustin typically struggles a little more with like double and single leg guys. So if he can stay in space and keep his back off the fence, stylistically, he's going to do better with Islam than he did with Khabib. All in all, I think that Islam's fantastic. If I was to build myself as a perfect fighter, Islam has 2 or 3 of the skill sets that I would take. Like if I was to pull other pieces from other people, I would take his top pressure, and I would take his mindset, and I would take his conditioning above everybody else's in the entire UFC. So, you know, if that means anything to you guys,
well,
I think that
Anthony, let me ask you this then, because like, if you were to fight 2 individuals that had these same skill sets, would you have a bigger problem with the guy who was good at a lot of things or the guy that was just great at one thing? Because it seems like
I'd rather fight the more diverse guy. I don't want to fight the specialist. And that's okay. I don't want to fight the specialist because, of course, you can say, well, I'll just avoid that one thing. Well, like, what if you can't? What if you can't?
Right.
Like, I'd rather fight someone who's really good everywhere than someone who's pretty good everywhere, but a specialist in one spot, because you're kind of playing with fire there a little bit.
Right.
Although hypothetically it could never happen, but like if you made Dustin Poirier 6'4", like if we could supersize him and make an Anthony Smith Dustin, but God, that'd be like one of the greatest fights ever. Because
listen, I'd be the best lightweight in the world right now.
Let me ask you this: we're in the middle of the Panthers. They're knocking on the door of the Stanley Cup here. We have seen some pretty good fights on ice. If we put Anthony Lionheart Smith in skates, how are his fighting skills? Did you play hockey growing up at all? Do you feel like if we just put you in a Panthers jersey, you could enforce for a few minutes?
You know, that's so funny you say that. I'm not a great skater, but I can stay upright, especially if I got a good grip on somebody else's jersey. If I got a grip on someone else's jersey and they can help hold me up, I've always said, like, I wish that I could, because I can't play hockey at all. I can't skate good enough to play hockey, and I definitely couldn't hold a stick and shoot a puck. But if you need someone beat up, just send me on out there, because I would love to do that job.
we would get a lot of 5-minute majors if we had you on the team, because you would just throttle everybody who was out there.
Absolutely.
Is there anything to this this staff thing that's going on with Islam? Everybody's a detective on Twitter. Is there any buzz around the fight week of that being legit? And is that something to take into account with this fight?
Well, I'll pull the curtain back a little bit for you guys. The fact that there is no buzz means that there's something there. It means that everyone's keeping it pretty hush-hush. I'm not so worried about the staff. You got to worry about what you do to treat the staff. So if it's being treated, we all flash back to Rockhold Weidman. We've never in the history of ever seen Luke Rockhold that tired, but he was packed with antibiotics from a staph infection. Benoit Saint Denis went in there and got more exhausted in the first round of his fight with Dustin Poirier, and then afterwards had staph infection, was packed with antibiotics. So if he is on antibiotics and has a legitimate staph infection, there's going to be a conditioning issue for sure.
I'm worried about, like, I played football, so once a year in camp, going through 2-a-days, somebody would get staph infection.
For sure.
They would get them guys out of there and send them to the hospital for 4 or 5 days, get all the stuff they needed, and when they came back, they were 100% healthy. I'm worried that, okay, you're just going in to the ring with this staph infection, like it.
And everybody's going to get
it. Right. I don't know how that works when the only situations I've been when somebody's had staph, that guy was gone for at least 5 days.
Yeah, last time I had staph, I ended up in surgery and having stuff cut out of me.
Right.
Yeah, like a couple years ago. So that's definitely a fear. If it was caught early enough and he's just been on medicine for a while, which honestly is worse. If they caught it a while ago and he's been on medicine for a while, we're just guessing here. But if that's the case, his conditioning is going to be drastically impacted.
Before we get you out of here,
the bigger issue for Islam.
Right.
That's the bigger issue.
Right.
Before we get you out of here, speaking of conditioning, should we be concerned that Conor McGregor seems like he's partying his ass off 6 weeks out of his fight?
Nah, come on, guys. Listen, we're crazy. Listen,
I just wonder. I don't know, like, what's the cutoff date for him to be doing that?
So I actually told this story about a week ago. Every single training camp that I had in Denver up until a couple years ago, I used to have Wednesdays off. So the first Tuesday of every training camp, me and Chris Camozzi would just blow our lids off. And it was about 6 weeks out. Sometimes you need that, like, you got to let fighters be fighters. We're in this position and in this job at this level because we're not like other people. So if you box him in too much, he's not going to be who he actually is. So I'm not saying Conor needs to be out partying and being a wild man all the time. But sometimes you got to blow a little bit of steam off and let him be who he is. I think it's far enough out. It's 5-6 weeks or whatever it was when that video came out from his fight. Hopefully it was a weekend and, he got it out of his system and moved on. To be fair, we don't know how much Conor had to drink because Conor is that person 100% sober, and I've spent enough time around him. It'd be hard to tell whether he had a lot to drink or not because he's kind of a maniac anyway. So I don't think there's a big deal. If we were 2 weeks out, maybe we could have a different conversation, but I think we're okay.
We appreciate the time, Anthony. Thanks so much, man. Watch Anthony Lionheart-Smith's coverage on ESPN this week. He's going to be on the analyst desk for UFC 302, available for you on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. Always appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
All right.